November 1895, Oxfordshire, England. Blenheim Palace rises from morning mist, 187 rooms, 2,000 acres, a monument to military glory spanning 3 centuries. Inside, crystal chandeliers catch winter light across staterooms that have hosted kings and queens. But in a locked vault beneath the long library, lawyers seal a document that cannot be opened until 2015. The contract conceals a price, $2.5 million in cash, $90 million today paid to rescue a crumbling dynasty. The bride is 18 years old. The groom's family is bankrupt. What did that fortune buy, and what did it cost? Stand at the Great Court today and tilt your head back. The stone facade climbs 4 stories, topped with finials and carved heraldry that took master craftsmen 3 years to complete. Walk through the entrance. Your footsteps echo across 67 meters of marble corridor. 55 rooms open off this single hallway alone, rooms for music, for dining, for displaying art collected across 2 centuries, for receiving ambassadors and entertaining nobility. This is not merely a home. It is England's only non-royal, non-episcopal palace, granted by a grateful Queen Anne to John Churchill, 1st Duke of Marlborough, for defeating Louis XIV's armies at the Battle of Blenheim in 1704. The building itself is the reward, constructed at Crown expense, designed by Sir John Vanbrugh, England's most theatrical architect. £2 million sterling in 1705 money, perhaps $3 billion in today's terms. The palace took 17 years to build. Vanbrugh died before completion. Churchill died before moving in. But the monument stands, Baroque splendor in honey-colored Oxfordshire stone, with gardens landscaped by Capability Brown, a library housing 10,000 volumes, staterooms dripping with guilt and ceremony. By 1890, it is rotting. The 8th Duke of Marlborough, George Charles Spencer Churchill, inherits at age 21. He inherits glory, certainly. He inherits 187 rooms. He inherits 11,500 acres of Oxfordshire farmland. He inherits paintings by Rubens and Van Dyck. He inherits debts of £64,000, perhaps $10 million today. He inherits a roof that leaks through 17 separate holes. He inherits lead pipes corroded since the 1760s. He inherits window frames swollen with damp. He inherits fireplaces that smoke because chimneys need rebuilding. He inherits tax assessments based on acreage that generates no profit, because British agriculture is collapsing under grain imports from America and Argentina. The estate staff numbers 63. The annual operating cost exceeds £20,000. Rental income from tenant farms, £9,000 and falling. The arithmetic is brutal. The 8th Duke cannot afford to live in the palace his ancestor earned with blood. English law offers no escape. Primogeniture locks the estate to the eldest son. He cannot sell it piecemeal. He cannot mortgage it beyond existing debts. The palace must pass intact to the next duke, even if maintaining it bankrupts the family. But across the Atlantic Ocean, a solution is taking shape. It wears Paris gowns and speaks with a New York accent. It comes with a father who controls a fortune built on railroads, and who understands exactly what aristocratic prestige can be purchased for. How did Blenheim Palace survive with American money? And the transaction's true terms would stay hidden for 120 years. Flashback to November 6, 1895. The chapel at St. Thomas Church, 5th Avenue, New York. Consuelo Vanderbilt stands at the altar in a gown that costs $6,720, over $240,000 in current money. Her veil is held by orange blossoms. Her eyes are red from crying. The groom is Churchill-Spencer Churchill, 9th Duke of Marlborough. His father died in July, making young Charles the Duke at 23. He is pale, nervous, aristocratic. Photographs from the day show Consuelo staring past the camera, her jaw tight. The marriage contract has already been signed. The money is already committed. This wedding is the final ceremony completing a business transaction that began 2 years earlier. Consuelo is 18 years old. She does not love the Duke. She loves someone else, Winthrop Rutherford. Handsome, American, socially acceptable, but insufficiently wealthy for her mother's ambitions. Alva Vanderbilt, Consuelo's mother, has forbidden the relationship. Alva has locked Consuelo in her bedroom. Alva has threatened suicide if her daughter refuses this match. Alva has orchestrated every element of this arrangement with the calculating precision of a corporate merger, which, in essence, it is. The Vanderbilt fortune originates with Consuelo's great-grandfather, Cornelius Commodore Vanderbilt, who died in 1877 as the wealthiest man in America. Steamships first, then railroads consolidating lines, eliminating competitors, controlling routes. By the 1890s, the family fortune exceeds $200 million, perhaps $7 billion today. But American society treats the Vanderbilts as nouveau rich. Old New York families, Astors, Livingstons, Van Rensselaers descend from colonial landowners and regard railroad money as tainted, industrial, common. Alva Vanderbilt spent the 1880s storming these social barriers. She built a French chateau on Fifth Avenue. She hosted a costume ball for 1,200 guests that forced Mrs. Astor to acknowledge her existence. She divorced her husband, scandalously, in 1895 and immediately turned to securing her daughter's position through European aristocracy. This is the Gilded Age marriage market operating at full efficiency. Titled but bankrupt European noblemen need American capital. Wealthy but socially insecure American families crave the legitimacy of ancient bloodlines. Between 1870 and 1914, over 450 American heiresses marry European aristocrats, transferring an estimated $220 million across the Atlantic, approximately $9 billion in modern currency. The 9th Duke needs Blenheim Palace restored before it collapses. His agricultural rents cannot cover costs. Death duties on his father's passing demand immediate payment. He needs capital infusion on a scale only American fortunes can provide. The negotiation is conducted through intermediaries. Alva wants a duke, preferably English, definitely titled, certainly prestigious. The Duke of Marlborough qualifies on all counts. Blenheim Palace itself is the selling point, a residence that will make Consuelo a duchess and position any grandchildren within reach of the British throne itself. The Marlborough line has royal connections through various marriages. The financial terms are recorded in legal documents prepared by New York attorneys and London solicitors. William Kissam Vanderbilt, Consuelo's father, despite being divorced from Alva, provides the settlement. $2.5 million in railroad stock transferred immediately. The stock generates 4% annual dividends, providing $100,000 yearly income to the Duke. That's $3.6 million per year in current purchasing power. Additionally, the settlement guarantees that if Consuelo produces a male heir, an additional fund will secure the child's financial future. But certain clauses are sealed. The documents specify they cannot be opened until 2015 to 120 years after the wedding. Why the secrecy? What terms were so sensitive they required a century of concealment? The wedding proceeds. 600 guests fill the church. The bride's bouquet contains orchids shipped from the Vanderbilt greenhouses. The Duke places the Marlborough ring on Consuelo's finger. Legally, she becomes the Duchess of Marlborough, chatelaine of Blenheim Palace, mistress of one of England's greatest houses. They sail for England. The American newspapers celebrate the match, a Vanderbilt ascending to the highest reaches of British society. The Duke has his fortune. Alva has her ducal son-in-law. Consuelo has a gilded cage. They didn't know it yet, but the money that saved Blenheim Palace would nearly destroy everyone it touched. The arithmetic of duty versus desire, obligation versus happiness, would prove far more complex than any financial ledger could record. Arrive at Blenheim Palace, December 1895. Consuelo steps from the carriage onto gravel. The facade looms above her, vast, cold, magnificent, terrifying. She is 19 years old. This is now her home. The household staff numbers 73, not counting outdoor laborers who maintain the grounds. There's a hierarchy Consuelo must learn. The controller, who manages accounts. The butler, who oversees male servants. The housekeeper, who commands female staff. Ladies' maids, footmen, valets, hallboys, scullery maids, laundresses. Each position operates according to rules established over centuries. The Duchess gives orders through the housekeeper. She does not speak directly to junior staff. She appears at meals at precise times. She hosts according to schedules determined by tradition, not preference. Her marriage provides no comfort. The Duke is formal, distant, dutiful. He requires an heir specifically, a male heir to continue the line. Their interactions are governed by aristocratic convention. Separate bedrooms, scheduled encounters, minimal emotional intimacy. Consuelo writes later in her autobiography that she felt like a commodity bought and paid for. But the money flows as contracted. The Vanderbilt Railroad stock generates its promised $100,000 annually. The Duke immediately directs funds toward essential repairs. The roof over the East Wing is re-leaded, 36,000 individual sheets hammered into place. The plumbing system, installed in 1850 and deteriorating badly, is replaced entirely. Cast iron pipes, modernized drains, new bathroom fixtures. The cost exceeds $40,000, nearly $1.5 million today, just for plumbing. The electrical system comes next. Blenheim has operated by candlelight and oil lamps since construction. In 1896, the Duke installs a generator house and wires the staterooms. Another $25,000. The windows in the long library, 56 panes of hand-blown glass. Some cracked since the 1820s, are replaced by a craftsman brought from London. The entrance courtyard is re-gravelled. The capability brown gardens, overgrown and neglected, are restored by teams of laborers working under a landscape architect's direction. Consuelo produces the required heir, John Spencer Churchill, born September 18, 1897. 2 years later, a second son, Ivor, arrives. The succession is secured. The Marlborough line will continue. Alva Vanderbilt's social ambitions are fulfilled. Her grandson is the future Duke. But Consuelo is miserable. She writes letters to friends describing isolation, loneliness, the suffocating weight of duty. The Duke's family treats her with polite coldness. She is American, new money, foreign. English aristocratic society values bloodline over fortune. The Vanderbilt millions have purchased access but not affection, position but not belonging. The financial arrangement, however, functions with mechanical efficiency. Each year, dividends arrive from New York. Each year, the Duke allocates funds to maintenance, repairs, estate operations. Blenheim Palace, literally saved from collapse by American capital, stabilizes. The roof no longer leaks. The chimneys draw properly. The staterooms gleam with fresh gilt. Yet the underlying arithmetic remains precarious. The annual Vanderbilt income of $100,000 sounds vast. It is vast. But Blenheim's operating costs are extraordinary. Staff wages consume $18,000 yearly. Heating the palace through winter requires 20 tons of coal per week at $3 per ton, totaling $3,000 for the season. Property taxes, local rates, insurance, another $12,000. Routine maintenance on a building this size, replacing worn carpets, repairing plasterwork, polishing silver, maintaining vehicles and equipment, adds $15,000 more. The total approaches $50,000 per year, half the Vanderbilt income. The remaining $50,000 should provide comfortable surplus. But the Duke maintains a London residence at Carlton House Terrace. He keeps a racing, stable, aristocratic tradition demands it. He employs a private secretary, a land agent, attorneys. He must entertain, hosting shooting parties, accommodating royal visitors, fulfilling social obligations that come with his title. The costs accumulate relentlessly, and beneath the financial calculations runs a darker current, the human cost. Consuelo's emotional state deteriorates. She finds some purpose in charitable work, establishing clinics on the estate, supporting schools in nearby Woodstock, but her marriage remains hollow. The Duke, meanwhile, grows resentful. The Vanderbilt fortune is legally Consuelo's, controlled by trustees in New York. He has access to income but cannot touch principal. He is dependent on his wife's fortune, a humiliating position for a man whose ancestors commanded armies and advised sovereigns. By 1906, the relationship fractures completely. 11 years of dutiful misery end in separation. They maintain appearances for the sake of the children and social propriety, but they live apart. Consuelo eventually retreats to London, then travels abroad. The Duke remains at Blenheim, custodian of a palace sustained by a fortune attached to a wife he no longer pretends to love. The sealed contract from 1895 remains locked away. Its clauses, its precise terms, its protection of Consuelo's interests against a potentially hostile husband, all concealed. The money continues flowing. The palace stands. But the price paid in human happiness, in constrained lives and dutiful misery, exceeds any dollar amount recorded in legal documents. Behind the beauty, behind the restored stonework and manicured gardens, behind the gilded state rooms and the portraits of glorious ancestors, calculation, transaction, a young woman's life traded for architectural preservation. The arithmetic turned brutal in 1920. World War I ended 2 years earlier, and Britain emerged victorious but financially devastated. The government, desperate for revenue, imposed severe taxes on landed estates. Death duties, inheritance taxes climbed to 40% on the largest fortunes. Annual property taxes on acreage quintupled. Agricultural rents, already depressed, collapsed further as thousands of returning soldiers flooded the labor market, and mechanization reduced demand for farm workers. Across England, great houses emptied. Between 1918 and 1955, over 1,000 country estates were demolished, literally torn down. Their contents auctioned, their land sold piecemeal. The aristocracy, sustained for centuries by agricultural rents, could not adapt to an industrial economy that taxed wealth rather than protecting hereditary privilege. Blenheim Palace should have fallen during this wave. The 9th Duke's financial position, despite Vanderbilt's support, grew increasingly precarious. The estate's 11,500 acres generated minimal income. Taxes consumed enormous sums. The palace itself demanded constant expenditure. Roofs still leak, stonework still erodes, systems still fail. A building this size never stops needing money. But the Vanderbilt income continued. The railroad stock, carefully selected by William Kissam Vanderbilt in 1895, proved resilient. Through economic cycles, through war, through the market crash of 1907 and the post-war recession, the dividends arrived. Consuelo's fortune, managed by New York trustees, sustained the palace even as her marriage disintegrated. In 1921, Consuelo and the Duke finally divorced, scandalous for its time, requiring special papal dispensation since both were Catholic. The divorce settlement involved complex negotiations over money. Consuelo retained control of her fortune. The Duke kept Blenheim and access to sufficient income to maintain it. The precise terms, again, were sealed. The 9th Duke remarried quickly Gladys Deacon, an American beauty famous in European society circles. The second marriage proved as troubled as the first. Gladys's mental health deteriorated. The Duke, aging and bitter, retreated into reclusiveness. By the 1930s, Blenheim Palace had become a monument haunted by its owners. Beautiful, historically significant, financially viable due to American money, but emotionally barren. The 9th Duke died in 1934. His son John, Consuelo's eldest boy, became the 10th Duke at age 37. John inherited the palace, the title, the responsibilities, and the ongoing financial pressure. Death duties on his father's estate demanded immediate payment. British tax authorities assessed property value, art collections, land. The bill approached £250,000, perhaps $20 million in current terms. The 10th Duke faced a choice: sell portions of the estate or leverage Vanderbilt connections for additional capital. His mother Consuelo, now remarried to French aviator Jacques Balsan and living in France, still controlled her fortune. She provided further support. Additionally, the 10th Duke opened Blenheim Palace to paying visitors in 1951, of the first British aristocratic families to commercialize their ancestral home. Tourism became salvation. Visitors paid to walk through state rooms to see Churchill's birthplace. Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister, was born at Blenheim in 1874. His father was the 9th Duke's younger brother. The entrance fees, modest but accumulating, provided new income streams. Post-war Britain, hungry for connection to national heritage, embraced country house tourism. Blenheim survived, not through aristocratic rents, not through agricultural income, through American money initially, then through adapting to modernity, opening doors, selling tickets, acknowledging that palaces built for private glory must become public heritage to endure. But what exactly did those sealed contracts from 1895 contain? As decades passed, rumors circulated. Legal scholars speculated. Historians wondered. The truth waited, locked away, counting down toward 2015. November 6, 2015. Exactly 120 years after Consuelo Vanderbilt married the 9th Duke of Marlborough. In a law office in London, archivists opened the sealed envelope. The documents reveal protection clauses that were radical for 1,895. The contract specified that the $2.5 million remained under Consuelo's control through trustees, ensuring the Duke could not squander or misappropriate the principal. It guaranteed that if Consuelo produced sons, which she did, additional funds would secure their education and independence, preventing them from becoming financially dependent on a potentially hostile father. It protected Consuelo's right to live separately if the marriage failed, with continued financial support from her own fortune. Most significantly, it mandated that if the Duke died or they divorced, Consuelo retained full control of her wealth without his family claiming any portion. These terms were revolutionary. Married women in 1895 England typically had no property rights. Everything legally belonged to husbands. William Kissam Vanderbilt, drafting this contract, understood he was selling his daughter. But he also understood how to protect her within a transaction he could not prevent. The sealed clauses were protective armor, ensuring that while Consuelo's body and title belonged to the Marlborough family, her fortune remained ultimately hers. Today, Blenheim Palace stands magnificently restored. Over 800,000 visitors tour it annually. The Churchill family still resides in private apartments, but the staterooms are open to the public. The current Duke, the 12th, manages Blenheim as a heritage enterprise, hosting events, filming period dramas, running a farm shop and gift stores. The palace that should have collapsed, that would have collapsed without Vanderbilt money, survives as a testament to the strange bargains wealth enables. Beauty preserved through transaction, heritage maintained through commerce, aristocracy sustained by American industry. Walk through the staterooms now. Admire Vanbrugh's soaring architecture. Marvel at the painted ceilings and gilded furniture. Stand in the long library where 10,000 volumes line the walls. And remember, beneath the beauty, calculation. Beneath the heritage, a price paid in a young woman's constrained life. Beneath the glory, the arithmetic that has always governed palaces, someone must pay for grandeur, whether in gold, in labor, in duty, or in dreams deferred. The fortune hidden at Blenheim Palace was never truly hidden. It was sealed, protected, waiting. And when revealed, it showed that even in 1895, Even in transactions that treated women as commodities, resistance was possible. Protection was negotiable. Agency, however limited, could be preserved. The seal is broken. The truth stands revealed. The palace endures, and so does the story of what it cost and who paid the price. Blenheim Palace remains. Not because aristocracy proved sustainable, it didn't. Not because agriculture financed heritage, it couldn't. But because at a crucial moment, American industrial wealth crossed the Atlantic and purchased time. Time for the world to change. Time for tourism to replace tenant rents. Time for public heritage to supersede private glory. Consuelo Vanderbilt died in 1964 at age 87, having lived long enough to see her grandsons inherit the dukedom, to see Blenheim become a UNESCO World Heritage Site, to see the marriage market that traded her youth finally collapse under the weight of modernity. She wrote her memoirs, titled The Glitter and the Gold, in which she described her gilded cage with clarity and remarkable lack of bitterness. The fortune she brought saved more than a building. It purchased adaptation time, the years needed for aristocracy to transform into heritage management, for private palaces to become public trusts, for dynasties to become tourist attractions. Stand at Blenheim today, and the question lingers: what is preservation worth? What price is acceptable for beauty? Can we celebrate the building while acknowledging the human cost of its survival? The sealed contract from 1895 offers one answer: protect what you can within the constraints you face. Preserve agency where possible. Ensure that if sacrifice is demanded, those who pay the price retain some measure of control over their own futures. The palace stands, the fortune is revealed, and we, the visitors, walk through beauty built on bargains we can finally understand.